Connecticut's congressional delegation has been keeping busy in Washington, D.C., what with fiery debates over health care reform and especially now how to help the hurting economy, all the while minding, of course, the priority of how it all affects us here at home. It is a pleasure to have with us today the U.S. Congressman from Connecticut's 2nd District, Representative Joe Courtney. Thanks so much for being here.
Great to be here, Lori.
I know you've been keeping busy over the last few days meeting with families and workers who, like families and workers across the country, have been feeling the strain of this weak economy. Let's start off with how you think Connecticut is doing in terms of retaining jobs or creating jobs in industry. Where are some gaps and how are you helping?
Well, I think if you looked at the national numbers and where Connecticut fits in, we're slightly better than the national median, but you know, obviously we're at a place right now which is just not acceptable in terms of the number of people that have lost jobs and are out there looking for work. On the Armed Services Committee, I mean, obviously that's a committee I sit on that has a big impact on the defense industry in the state of Connecticut,
right,
which is a huge part of our economy. You know, there are some positive developments. The President's budget that was released earlier this month has a new investment in terms of design and engineering work for the next class of nuclear submarines, and that will result in new hires, which actually is happening on that end of the workforce down at EB. But on the production side, again, the good news is we now have locked in a 2-sub-a-year construction schedule, which has been the holy grail for Connecticut for many years. But there still is a little bit of gap you know, in terms of when the time that actually commences, and we lost some repair work when the USS Pittsburgh had a deployment extended. So we've got a potential for a layoff. There's some notices went out for April 1st, and we're working with the Navy and also with management down there to try and figure out ways we can mitigate those numbers. I mean, these are incredibly valuable workers who we're going to need when that production level finally locks in, and it's a skill that you just can't go out and find that easily.
And when you talk to them and you're looking for ways to mitigate, what are some ideas that they have?
Well, first of all, I mean, the Navy, which controls the flow of repair work in terms of public shipyards and private shipyards, is a key player here, and we have been in constant contact with Admiral McCoy, who's in charge of that part of the system down in D.C. And again, we're not going to stop until we try and get some again new work for Groton. The other is again some of the new design work. We hopefully can shift some of the production highly skilled workers who actually can do drafting and some of that work to see if again that can soften the blow a little bit. And then there's some discussion about some work share arrangements to try and again, because at the end of the day we need these people to stay because the time is coming where that production level is going to require every single one of those talented people.
Right. Okay, so that's good news about retaining jobs. What about creating new jobs?
Well, again, the President in his State of the Union address talked about a new goal for our country, which is to double exports in the next 5 years. If you look at GDP growth in the last quarter of 2009, actually exports went up 18% across the board. That's partly because the dollar is a little bit weaker and gives the U.S. a better competitive position. But I think an export strategy, particularly for a state like Connecticut, is the way to go. My office, along with the U.S. Department of Commerce, is organizing a trade mission to Israel the first week of April. That's the largest trading partner the U.S. has in the Middle East, and we have already a dozen companies in Connecticut that are going to join us as part of this effort. There'll be face-to-face meetings with potential customers, and at the end of the day, as the Hartford Courant did a story last week on small businesses and the challenges they face with credit, but the number one issue, which NFIB and others pointed to, is we've got to get increased sales, and exports, I think, is an excellent strategy, and I think the President is right on target to lay that out as a goal, which frankly I think will bring a lot of bipartisan support. How
quickly, you know, if you have that kind of trade mission to Israel, how quickly could we see benefits from that, or is that more of a long-term investment?
Well, we want short-term and long-term. Again, the Commerce Department, which has an excellent export assistance center in Middletown, is already hard at work in terms of setting up individual face-to-face meetings with customers. They've got people in Tel Aviv as well as back here in Middletown. They understand the company's products and services, and they're trying to match them up with the right folks over there to make these sales happen. We did one of these missions last year to the European Union, and it has been productive. And some of the companies that joined us on that trip are coming to Tel Aviv as well because they really felt it really benefited them in terms of growing their sales.
Are those mostly in Israel? Are we talking mostly about security businesses, or?
No, actually, there are going to be some defense firms there, but there also will be some medical technology companies. We're trying to get some tourism-related folks in Connecticut who, again, I think we're a great state to promote tourism to come to the state of Connecticut. Again, it's goods and services, and it's not all defense.
Right. If we could, just switching gears here real quickly, moving on to, of course, we just had that deadly explosion at the clean energy plant in Middletown. When you look at that situation, what raises concerns for you?
Well, what I think is clear is that if you look across the country, construction of natural gas plants is now a growing phenomenon.
Right.
The Energy Act of 2005 promoted this type of expansion. It's a clean burning fossil fuel, the cleanest of all. So there's no question you're going to see, I think, a lot of this type of activity out there, but certainly the OSHA laws, the occupational safety laws, have not caught up to this trend, and my committee, the Education and Labor Committee, has already made a commitment to examine where we are right now in terms of recommendations that have come through the agency process, and to really determine whether or not we really need to pull those out and make them an enforceable legal structure to protect workers who, again, are doing great things in terms of creating a new energy economy, but are obviously engaged in unbelievably dangerous work.
Right, because we don't want this to be a setback to the good benefits, perhaps, of clean energy.
That's right.
Right. Excellent. Well, I appreciate you coming by. I'm sorry that we didn't have much more time, but always good to see you.
Congratulations on your new studio.
Oh, thank you very much. We're very happy to be here. And these